Tako, lep pozdrav na današnjem popoldanskem dogodku Prenos dobrih praks. Dear kind guests, dear Mr. Ambassador Johan Webrom, kindly welcome today at our last event in our series of events. Dear Mr. Harald Tepar, gospod Borut Cenčak, Danka, I don't know, I don't see her, but kindly welcome, and Mojca Pinterič, also from iz Nizozemske ambasade. Skratka, dragi gostje, spoštovani, današnji dogodek je zadnji v seriji dogodkov, ki smo jih organizirali v sodelovanju z Nizozemsko ambasado na temo prenos dobrih praks med državami in meddržavnega povezovanja in sodelovanja na področju zelenega gospodarstva. Danes gostimo tako veleposlanika Kraljevine Nizozemske, gospoda Johana Webroma, gospoda Haralda Teparja, direktorja področja trajnosti in krožnega gospodarstva v Philipsu. Z nami je tudi predstavnik podjetja Philips Sloveniji, gospod Borut Cenčak, in Danka Osterhof iz Dutch Coalition Grow, to je naša sestrska organizacija, prav tako za spodbujanje podnebno nevtralnega gospodarstva, ki smo združeni v Sustainable Business Network, ki deluje pod sklopom Univerze v Cambridgeu. Tako da program bo potekal tako, da po uvodnih nagovorih bomo prisluhnili, kako se trajnostne preobrazbe lotevajo v podjetju Philips, ki ima že dolgo tradicijo. Podjetje je staro več kot 130 let in je prešlo že marsikatere krize, trende in strumno stopa na pot zelene preobrazbe in temu bi radi danes prisluhnili. Tako da vabljeni res, vkolikor imate kakršnakoli vprašanja, ideje, dajte jih posredovati v chat in po pogovoru z gospodom Haraldom bomo odprli tudi diskusijo, da čim več zvemo iz prve roke, kako Philips na to pot stopa in kakšne ideje lahko dobimo mi tukaj v Sloveniji. So, Mr. Webrom, thank you again for supporting our work, for joining forces. We did several events in this half year. We presented best practices. We visited your pavilion in Dubai, getting to know your circular economy and green transition actions. We were also we got the information about due diligence, so how directors are responsible for implementing sustainability in their business. So Mojca Pinterič presented this part, how Netherlands is fostering green transition among the business. And we see many opportunities for further cooperation among our organization and your organization, and also among the Slovenian and Dutch business. So the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. It's really a great pleasure to be in one of your events again. It's only 1 year since I'm in beautiful Slovenia, enjoying life and work here. And I remember very well when I just arrived a year ago that we had I had a very nice start. We did a big event together with with a big audience about I made a speech about the Dutch policy on sustainability and circular economy. And since then, we have decided to continue working together in a campaign. And today's activity is one of the activities in this campaign. And the campaign we call Green Transition Champions. So here we are. And I really would like to thank you for the excellent cooperation we are having. And I must say that your organization, the Center of Energy Solutions, is really doing an excellent job. Because it's so important to exchange best practices and to learn from each other. I think that in the Netherlands we can learn a lot from Slovenia, and we have some best practices in the field of climate adaptation and in circular economy, which we can offer to Slovenia. As an example, only last night I received a delegation of the Slovene flower sector at my residence, and this group of people will visit some best practices in the Netherlands physically, not online, in the coming days. As you all know, the Netherlands is a huge flower grower, very successful, but also looking for ways to become more and more sustainable, especially in the use of energy. And all kinds of innovations are being developed. It's extremely interesting to see. And we now even have a certification system for flowers that have been grown in a sustainable fashion. And in this way, the consumers, the buyers of flowers, they know how the flowers have been cultivated and developed. And this group of Slovenes, which are traveling to the Netherlands, they will visit several companies, best practices. They will also go to the Floriade, which is a kind of expo, a huge project, huge installation in Almere, where the main theme is growing green cities. And the newest innovations in that respect are being exhibited there. So if there's anybody in the audience visiting the Netherlands in the coming weeks, please go there because it's really worthwhile. And also here in Slovenia, you have very nice examples in all kinds of sectors. But if we talk about flowers, I recently visited ocean orchids in the eastern part of the country, and I was impressed by the way how they use solar energy and geothermal energy for their greenhouses. It's very interesting to see how they manage to grow orchids for the whole Slovenian market and also for neighboring countries in a very sustainable way. Because in the end, we share the same goal, the Netherlands, Slovenia, the whole EU as a goal. We have to become climate neutral by 2050. And we have to work very hard to reach that goal. As I said, I'm very glad that our embassy, together with your Center of Energy Solutions, that we have managed to create a kind of playground to exchange ideas and best practices. And well, today we have another green transition champion. I'm very happy that Mr. Harold Tepper, Director of Sustainability at Philips, is with us and that he will give a presentation, because it's so important that large companies, they're not only large, they also have to give the right example and join us in our green transition. And I think that Philips is doing this. I just had a very interesting presentation by the country representative of Philips in Slovenia. We met, he showed me and he told me everything. And that was quite impressive in the area of medical equipment, especially. So I think it will be very interesting to hear more from Mr. Tepper about the integration of circular economy principles by Philips, as they have developed this. Well, with that, I would like to close and wish you all an inspiring event. And yeah, I'm looking forward to discuss also outcomes and further developments, further forms of collaboration, which is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verbrom, for the kind opening words and again for the collaboration. Dragi gostje, samo predno predam besedo našemu vabljenemu govorcu. Naj samo omenim, da po tem dogodku vabljeni, da ostanete še nekaj časa z nami. Mišljeno je tudi kot sekcija vseh sekcij, kjer bi odprli diskusijo in predstavili, kakšne člane ste člani že podali pred poletjem za prehod zelenega gospodarstva. Danes bomo gotovo dobili še kakšne ideje, tako da kakšne pol ure po dogodku bi šli še čez vsebine, na katerih bomo delali v prihodnosti. So, Mr. Harald, the stage is now yours. We are looking forward to hear how Philips is going through these transitions, how 130 years are stable for you, and how do you see the future and how you are adapting these new business models to the mega trends and demands from different stakeholders that you are facing.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Anna, for this great introduction. Also, Mr. Verbrom, for laying out the context and the nice words about Philips. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to say a little bit about how we have engaged on our sustainability and on our purpose programs. I always start a bit with what is Philips indeed. So Philips was indeed erected more than 130 years ago in a little town in the south of the Netherlands. Started out as a couple of brothers that invented a light bulb and basically built a very successful business with these light bulbs in the beginning. And actually from the beginning, they took responsibility beyond the pure business interest, if you will. Really building housing for their employees, building cultural centers, sports club, etc. Some of this is still in existence. And I'm not from that neighborhood, but if you walk around in that city, then everyone has at least one family member that has worked at Philips, and so it's a profound effect that the company can have also on a local community. So you could say doing business responsibly and sustainably is in our veins, and that's also the topic of the talk today. I have for roughly 20 to 30 minutes slides with me. Happy to take a lot of questions also afterwards, and also in between if there's any clarifying questions, I would be okay to take them. I don't know how that works technically, but there should at least be plenty of room for interaction, because then you can focus on the things that are of interest to you. So then maybe a little bit more about this history. So we started out as a light bulb company. Philips has basically reinvented itself for 6 times, I think, over the decades. Was one of the inventors of the CD, the compact disc. We're in the gramophone business, televisions, domestic appliances, and most recently, last 10 years, I would say, we have undergone a major transition to what we call a health technology company. So we are focusing really now on products that improve the health and well-being of people. That's a lot more focused than before, but still broad in the sense that we cover the entire space from the hospital to the home. So on the one hand, selling large-scale medical equipment like MR machines and X-ray to hospitals and governments. And on the other end of the spectrum, still a lot of consumer products with toothbrushes, juicers, etc. Because we believe we are very well positioned to help to maintain affordable healthcare by really making that connection from the hospital to the home. Now, you might still know Philips from television screens and coffee machines, for instance. It's important maybe to realize that these products have, or these businesses have been sold off, but the products where they still carry the Philips brand are also subject to a brand licensing agreement. And they're still subject and also to the same sustainability requirements that we put to our core company. So everything I'm telling today is also partly true for these other brands. So what is Philips? So in 2020, we really took another step, I think, towards a purpose-led company. We had decades of experience with sustainability programs, with eco-design programs, and climate action programs. And in 2020, we said, okay, let's bring this all together and bring it even further into the core strategy of our company, which led to this publication of our, what I would call our integrated purpose. So what you see on the top is that we say we are a health technology company, so we are in the business of improving people's health and well-being, and we have even put a quantitative target to that. So we are measuring how many people do we touch actually with our products. We're currently at 2.1 billion, want to grow to 2.5 billion per year by 2030. But that's only the core of it. At the same time, we want to create maximum value for our employees, with being the best place to work, maximum value for our customers and for our shareholders. And we want to do everything we do in a responsible and a sustainable way. So that way we say sustainability should not be a side project, should not be a strategy on the side. We also don't have a sustainability report every year. We have an integrated report. So that means that all our non-financial KPIs, if you will, are part of the same annual report and go also through the same scrutiny with our external auditors as our financial numbers. So I think that's one of the things that inspires me at least a lot and helps me also as a program lead of these kind of topics. Now, why is this important? I probably don't have to tell you that the world is on fire in many different aspects, and that we should take action to address all these different crises that are coming at us, whether it's the climate crisis or the crisis around health and health, or the crisis around the distribution of wealth in the world, which is very skewed. All of these things, companies can have a large impact, and we believe they should then also take responsibility for that. And as I said, it has been in our veins for a long time. But I think we live in interesting times where we now see that basically all the stakeholders around us are also starting to ask that from us. It will be interesting maybe also to have a discussion about it if you feel that also from your company domains. But we see that investors, for instance, are asking a lot of questions about how we are, not only what are our environmental ambitions, but also how are we progressing to them. What is the proof that we are actually moving the needle? Retailers are stepping up. So in some, not everywhere in the world, but in some countries in the world, we're starting to see different buying behavior from consumers. And retailers are then reaching out to us and say, can you tell us which of your products are the most green products, if you will, and can we help you to position them also then favorably at the retail channels. Customers as well, if you look at our large-scale customers, large hospitals are increasingly having also their own climate and circular ambitions and targets, and are looking then for suppliers that can help them with that. So we can go in later a little bit on what it means and how we are then partnering with them. Regulatory field is exploding. I would say more and more reporting requirements around sustainability, around social impact, around how you treat critical materials, etc. And last but not least, employees are also looking more and more to work for companies with a clear purpose, and not only a clear purpose on paper, but really living up to that in a daily manner. And that's what we try to do, which is, to be honest, also a continuous journey, getting better and better at this over time. Now, you could say Why is it then so important for Philips, apart from being a company that wants to be responsible? Actually, the sector is quite a polluting sector, if you will. If I now move to the environmental side of our purpose, so healthcare, if it were a sector, in total accounts for more than 4% of the global CO2 emissions. That's more than aviation and shipping, and you often don't realize that. But if you think about it, it does make sense, right? Because hospitals are these high energy, high material intensity places. That basically have a huge huge footprint. So whatever you can do, also as a health technology company, to help people stay out of hospital, it's not only good for them and good for the healthcare cost, but also for the environment. And hospitals are realizing that, they're coming more and more at us to say, okay, can you help us with that? Also, this staggering amount of waste, and you see that here in the third bullet, 13 kilogram waste is produced per bed per day in the average hospital. That's just amazing, and we need to solve that. So let's move on. How we have then translated that into our sustainability targets. So to us, sustainable development has social components and environmental components. So if you look at the social side, we have linked all what we do to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, and really decided to focus on those Sustainable Development Goals where we can have the most impact. So on the social side, we say, well, we are a company that's in the world to deliver good health and well-being. But if we want to be honest about that, we should also take responsibility for the fact that half of the world population does not even have access to affordable healthcare, which is also amazing in itself, I would say, and staggering. So as part of this ambition to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people, we have put out a sub-target to say we want to reach 400 million people in what we call underserved communities per year. And 400 million, that's quite a lot. That means really rethinking our portfolio and thinking about, okay, what kind of healthcare solution that we have can actually help us reach these communities that are currently not reached. And then on the environmental side, you see that in SDG 12 and 13, we have targets that think about sustainable use of materials, which is the circular economy program addressing that, and sustainable use of energy, which is translated into our climate action targets. So how, and I will go later into what these targets then look like, but first maybe let's make it a little bit more concrete. What do we then need to think about if you think about, okay, what are then our sustainable solutions? And this is of course not everything, but just a couple of examples. So if you look at our access to care program, which really tries to reach this target to reach 400 million people on the service communities, we have already a couple of years ago launched community life centers, primary care solutions in Africa, where we basically, you could regard this as a hospital in a box that doesn't only serve as a hospital, but also as a community place where people can come together, where maybe that's the only place in the environment where there's actually energy or water supply. And that way we try to have impact in these communities. That's quite successful, but also difficult to scale. And all that. So we are also now looking a lot at, okay, what can we do with our software solutions and mobile solutions. And one example of that is called here Lumify with React. Lumify is actually an echo equipment that can be used for pregnant women, but then a very small one that is mobile. It can be taken on a road trip, if you will, with a nurse, and also connects directly to handheld devices, a telephone or a mobile device, whereas normal traditional echo machines are actually needing a patient monitor, a bedside monitor. So and this is actually a win-win on both sides, because it helps us to reach these communities that are otherwise not reached, but also it's a win for the environment because you don't need these big monitors. And also the React application is actually a digital solution that connects this device with a remote medical practitioner. So a hand-trained practitioner could look over the shoulders and give advice, give medical advice. Then on eco-design and circular economy, we have a long-standing tradition of refurbishing our equipment. So large-scale medical equipment, X-rays, MRIs, we can take them back to our refurbishment factory in the Netherlands and the US, strip them down to the bottom and build them back up to an as-new device that goes back to the market with the same 10-year guarantee as our new products. Also in more consumer products, we are building in more and more sustainable materials, recycled plastics, and we try to refurbish them as well when we get them back. And on the climate action side, we actually know that 70% of the total footprint of Philips comes from what we call the use phase. Only 10% of our CO2 footprint comes from our factories. Then some 15% comes from the supply chain. That's everything that's related, CO2 emissions related to mining, transport, and manufacturing. So that's basically where the circular economy program plays. But then 70% comes actually from the energy use of our products when they are out in the field, which is not surprising maybe because it's big machines and they all are electrically powered. So that means that our eco-design program focuses a lot on making sure that these machines are as energy efficient as possible. So it's an example, I think, of where it helps to measure your impact, to know where your impact is, and then use that as a focus for your targets and your activities. So to go a little bit deeper in that, I'll go now a little bit deeper in climate action and in circular economy. So in climate action, we have put out strong CO2 reduction targets, both in our operations, in supply chain, and in use phase. And we have aligned them with what is called the Science-Based Target Initiative. So that's an external organization that can confirm that our ambitions are in line with a 1.5-degree global warming scenario. So what it means in practice is that if every company and country in the world would have targets that live up to this, then the world will stay into this boundary of a 1.5-degree global warming, which is basically what the World Health Organization says as still a limit that is manageable. Now, this I already mentioned, right? We look at where's the impact in our operations, in supply chain, and our customers. The customer use phase is the biggest one, and that has led them to the targets that you see here. We want to, in our own operations, further reduce our CO2 emissions from our sites, from our factories, 75% by 2025 and 90% by 2040. 42% reduction in the entire value chain, so that's going a lot at the energy reduction of our products, but also on measuring what is actually the carbon impact of circular economy, moving from selling new products to refurbished products, because you can imagine that if you use a product twice, then you have a less big footprint than using it only once. And as said, that's all in line with the science-based targets. One thing to note in our own operations, we are already carbon neutral, and that we did that by buying into a power purchase agreement. So we were co-founders of large-scale wind farms in the Netherlands, across Europe, and in the US. And by that token, we can actually say that all the electricity that we use is already green electricity. And now the next step in the next 5 years is really phasing out and also other fossil fuels like gas and others. So that way, it's also a continuous journey, right? You can reach one target, but then in the next period, you need to further step up. Circular economy, The spirit, I mean, most of you will probably know what circular economy is about, but I think the heart of the matter is to try to maximize the lifetime values of our products and solutions while minimizing the use of resources and eliminating waste. That's a long sentence, but also shows a little bit the complexity of the circular economy. So on the one hand, with a climate action program, you can basically translate everything you do to this CO2 measure. In circular economy, that's not true, because you have actually many ways of closing loops, and you see a picture of that here. And you probably have seen this picture before, for instance, also from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So the classical way of organizing an economy is actually on the left-hand side, where you say you extract materials from the earth, you manufacture them into products, you distribute that to user. Maybe it goes to a second user, but at some point in time, it's just considered waste. And now at best it goes to incineration, but at worst it goes even to landfill somewhere. And that's something you want to avoid for several reasons: for the CO2 impact, for the pollution impact, but also for the fact that we get more and more scarcity of materials, especially also in this day and age, of course. So the only way to divert this is to create these circles. And the oldest one, I would say, the most well-known, is recycling. So if you cannot use the product anymore, make sure that you recycle the materials that are in there. But it's actually basically the lowest end version of this. So what you see here a little bit in these circles is what we call the value ladder. So you want to try to get more and more to these inner circles. And it starts already, which you don't see in all the papers, with this very inner circle, which we called dematerialization. So, for instance, an example that we gave before with this mobile obstetrics machine that connected directly to a handheld device, basically cutting out a whole piece of equipment, the patient monitor in this case. That is circularity at the heart, because you're actually avoiding the use of material by a digital solution. And that's also how we are talking now about with our software businesses, how this transition to a more digital world can actually also help to lower the environmental footprint of what we do. Now, not everything can be solved with a digital solution, of course, so we make a lot of products as well. So, what we then try to do is make sure that these products live for as long as possible. So extend the lifetime of it after 10 years service contract, which we do with upgrades, sometimes even on-site upgrades. So rather than taking back the equipment, we try to go into the hospital and upgrade that locally. And otherwise, we can also take it back and refurbish the machine. If that's not possible anymore, we still try to get our parts, and only at the last end of it, we try to recycle if nothing can be done with it anymore. So also here we have translated that into KPIs and targets. And we say by 2025, we want to be able to attribute 25% of our revenue to circular products and solutions. And that can then be these refurbished products, products that have a certain amount of recycled content, products that have come back and parts have been harvested from that and brought back to the market. So there's different ways that our different business units in Philips can contribute to this measure. We want to be circular, of course, also in our own operations. By 2020, we are already at zero waste to landfill in all our factories. And now we have a whole site management program that tries to step up there as well. Looking at waste is one thing, but really trying to reuse parts in our operations as well. Reuse the packaging, maybe send back packaging to original suppliers, etc. We have a big program that we call Close the Loop, which really seeks to try to go out to all our customers that have a existing product of Philips that becomes end of life, to not only go in there and say, do you want to buy a new piece of equipment, but make sure that we then also always offer a trade-in offer. So it's still to the customer to decide if they want to go with this, but at least we will make sure that we will always say, if you want to, we can buy back the equipment for you, and then we will take care of responsible management of that product. And that can be refurbishment or recycling or parts harvesting. And last but not least, I already mentioned the eco-design program, which focuses a lot of on energy reduction of our products, but also more and more the circular design of our products. Because you can imagine, the more you design your products for circularity, the more value you can also get out of it yourself if you take these systems back in the future. So our circular design programs are really around design for recycling, design for assembly and disassembly, and design with sustainable materials.
Harold,
yeah.
May I just interrupt
Sure.
at this stage?
Yeah.
So we are with this Green Deal, the whole Green Deal European Union. The point is the whole society goes circular.
Yeah.
You have written here 25% of sale from circular. Where do you see the biggest obstacles in going into completely circular model?
Yeah.
Is it the demand, supply, the data of the materials, the expenses? Where are the biggest obstacles?
Yeah. That's a very good question. So let me try to answer that. So I would almost say everywhere I see the obstacles. That's why I also try to explain a little bit what this 25% circular revenue means. It's not one KPI, it's more a framework, because the best circular strategy of one business unit in Philips is not the best for another business unit. So to make that practical, if you look at our large scale equipment, and so the big machines that we sell to hospitals, there we have focused a lot on refurbishment and on take back, and also more and more on X as a service models. So instead of selling the equipment, trying to sell a service, and scans at the service, etc., then the equipment remains your ownership, and then you have a different incentivization to make sure that the equipment lives for as long as possible. If you go to the other end of the spectrum, our consumer products, our shavers, for instance, there in general you don't control the full supply chain. So mostly these products don't come back to us. And that's where we said a couple of years ago, let's then start at the front end, because we can control that. So that's where we built up a lot of expertise to add circular recycled plastics, for instance, in our consumer products. Now, the interesting thing is that in the stage where we are currently, we are trying to bridge this gap. So trying to think about, okay, we have learned over 10 years how to embed recycled plastics in our consumer products. Can we extend those learnings to medical products? That's a whole different realm, because medical products are more regulated. So many regulations around the world say you cannot use recycled material. Now that's so the initial reaction internally was then also, okay, then we cannot do anything. But that's not true, because sometimes you can, instead of using recycled plastics, you can use bio-based plastics, which is sometimes okay. Or sometimes there's a difference between the part of the equipment that is patient touching and the inner parts that are never would touch a human body. Maybe you can do more there. So there's now challenges to find out what can we do in the medical space, what fits the regulatory requirements, and also what are then the alternatives, because this is a nascent field. So bio-based plastics are often still more expensive. Do we then say we don't go there, or can we team up with other companies and therefore create more buying power, more volume, so that also the price can go down, and work together with recyclers? On the take-back programs, we now want to extend these good practices of refurbishment and take-back from large-scale equipment to also smaller equipment. Then you have to think about, okay, do we need to build up then more repair and refurbishment factories around the world? We run also in a lot of regulatory barriers, where many governance regulations say it's everything you ship across borders and used products and used parts are usually falling under waste directives. They are not waste because you're going to reuse it, but they are legally falling under waste directives, and so there's a lot of barriers of what we then call transboundary movement of used and refurbished parts. So that's a couple of answers to your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And also almost done, and then we can open also the floor for more questions. I wanted to show this a little bit because the first part of my presentation was quite technical. What can we do with our portfolio, and how do we then translate that to KPIs and targets, which I think was really necessary to do that in the beginning, because you need to have a story on what does circularity mean for Philips, how do you translate that to measurable targets, and then cascade that through your normal performance cycle. But we now feel that, okay, to make the next step, it needs to be even deeper in our DNA. So we also started to think about, okay, how do we bring this sustainable way of working even more into our daily practice? And that's more a change management approach to think about how do we reach our 80,000 employees with these topics. And there's a couple of things that we have learned. So on the communication part, we learn more and more that it's not enough to have one corporate story, but you really need to make it specific. So what does circular economy mean for a designer, or for somebody in marketing, or for somebody in finance? So really drill down stories to target audiences in your company, so that people are not only inspired by the ambitions, but also understand what they can do about this themselves. Now we are building more and more. So the second and third pillar is really around building communities internally to drive the change together. So you cannot drive this change all from a corporate head office, but we're really teaming up with what we then call ambassadors around that company that can also translate these targets to their business or their market, and help others in their business and market to advance. And last but not least, you need to think about, you can do a lot of pilots, but how do you translate the learnings of these pilots into your standard way of working? And that's where we have a lot of experience, for instance, in our eco-design programs. First, we do a lot of pilots on, okay, what I said, can you embed circular plastics? What are the alternatives? We do that usually then with a couple of products in a couple of businesses. And once we have learned enough, then we say, okay, now we know what design for recycling means in Philips. And then we put that in our standard design process, so that every designer needs to think about that. So that's a little bit how we have approached this further embedding in your business practices. Yeah, I think let me stop there for now and open for questions.
Thank you, Harold, for this really nice overview of the roadmap. How are you doing the transition and who is involved? Maybe one question from my side. Where are the biggest risks, climate risks for Philips on the transition and on physical sides for your company?
The biggest climate risks? Now, twofold, I think. So it starts all with finding out where is your. Like, do you mean climate risk for Philips itself, or for our climate ambitions?
Well, on one side for the company, on the other side for the ambitions. So both things would be interesting.
Yeah, I would naturally start with the ambitions, because that's also risk in itself, right? So as I said, investors are looking more and more to companies that take their responsibility. So they want to know from us, indeed, what are your targets, and are they in line with where the world needs to go? So that's where we can honestly say yes, because we have put them under the scrutiny of the Science Based Targets Initiative. So the targets are okay, but then you need to reach them. So what they have done there where I said I have a view of the global company impact, where we say 70% comes from the use phase, from electricity. We actually drilled that down to products, and it turns out that there's a top 10 of products within Philips that is responsible for 80% of that impact. And one of them is hair dryers, because hair dryers use a lot of energy. Another one in the medical field is oxygen concentrators. Those are these machines that help people that have low oxygen with a mask to condense oxygen from the air and deliver that to the patients. Also very energy intensive. So by looking at where is your key impact, you can really say, okay, then we can have very focused interactions on changing that. And that's then also immediately a risk, right? Because it's an innovation challenge. Maybe that business has something else on their head. So we really, based on this impact analysis, we can go to those specific businesses and say, if you don't find a solution for your energy efficiency, then the whole company might be at risk of getting to their targets. And that's also felt by the leaders, because we have aligned all our sustainability targets with also the financial payout of our leaders. Now, so that's on the energy part. Now, on circular economy, we're also now measuring more and more what are the biggest game changers to reduce our footprint by going to refurbished and reuse, etc. So that helps to go from one story to really say, okay, this business needs to do that, and that business needs to do that to really focus your programs. If you don't do that, it's really difficult to stay on the program. I think that is the biggest risk. Climate, of course, we have, just like any other company, also risk analysis that are more into climate adaptation, and then you need to think about where are factories located. Are they located into areas that are more prone to flooding, etc.? So we are doing these analyses, etc., and addressing that as well, because you also get more and more questions on those as well.
Thank you. Če so kakšna vprašanja med publiko, vabljeni, da jih napišete ali pa da pokažete rokico. Okay, Franci? One question from your side, you just asked.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, Philips is a big organization, and with that comes like that Philips has a really big scope of environmental influences. But in Slovenia, and of course, because it's so big, it has also bigger negotiation power with other stakeholders in supply chain. But in Slovenia, there are most of small to medium big enterprises with almost no negotiation power. So how should maybe some small company in Slovenia try to expand this environmental consciousness and impacts? So positive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good question. It's obviously, I don't know all the details about the Slovenian situation, but I think,
yeah, how would you like if you were manager of some small company? So
yeah, I think the answer is to really team up, and you can think that Philips is big, but we are big in some sense and also small in other sense, right? So we are also teaming up a lot. So we are, for instance, one of the co-founders and co-chairs of PACE, which is a platform for accelerating the circular economy, where governments come together to really see what are the big challenges that need to be covered and how can we address them. And one of the things that we launched there was the Capital Equipment Coalition. That's let's say, all companies that put large-scale equipment on the market are not necessarily seen as a sector, because we team up with car companies and shipping companies, etc., and big electronics companies. We felt we have common challenges. For instance, the challenge I just mentioned about trans-border movement, that's really very important for companies that want to do a lot of refurbishment. So we have also benefited a lot from teaming up with likewise companies, and then we are a better voice to the government. And I have to say that Slovenia itself, I regularly come in contact with Slovenian organizations like the SHARE or also more circular economy focused organizations in circular economy conferences. So don't underestimate the power of these organizations. Even if they come from a small country, you are known as a country to be really a front runner in the East European South. And yeah, if you can team up with those organizations, that can really be helpful, and then you have a voice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got one question in the chat about have you planned to implement change, continue to do about your employees regard the social aspects of ESG?
Yeah.
So here are many questions, but
yeah, I see it also in the chat. I say, sorry if I missed. I did not really mention that, so you didn't miss it. So as what I mentioned in the beginning, indeed, is that our sustainability programs, but our purpose in general covers both social and environmental. So yes, the social part is more covered by a colleague of mine. That's why I mentioned less about that. But we have the same transformation approach. So really teaming up with a lot of employees and in communities of practice, making sure that we have a consistent story to them as well. So couple of, if you want to ask about what's in the content, so one of the big parts, of course, is access to care program, where we are really teaming up across the company to understand, okay, how do we even innovate for access for emerging markets? That's something new for many in our company as well. So that's really a cross-company, hackathon type of approach, if you will. One of the other big aspects of our social ESG commitments is around inclusion and diversity, right? So, and there we have top-down and bottom-up approaches. So we have of course, strong targets for our leaders to hire in a diverse manner, to take diversity into account in all their hiring strategies. But also we have annual employee days on diversity, where we really engage in a dialogue and say, what does it mean in practice, and how do you create a psychologically safe environment where everyone can speak up? So these are a couple of examples. Yeah.
Since we are with the employees, maybe just questions regarding incentivizing employing to achieve KPIs and how they get awarded to achieving KPIs. What are the main KPIs and incentives?
Yeah.
In the world? Yeah,
so it's not the case that every employee has a sustainability target. That's also difficult to do, but what I think is good, and why we also started to really build on these communities, is that we have a very active sustainability community within Philips. So we have built these social media platforms internally with SharePoint and Yammer infrastructure. And the sustainability community is the largest of all communities in Philips. It's around 8,000 people. So that's around 10% of our employee base. Now, just like with any social platform, it's not every of these 8,000 is equally active, but at least they have all signed up themselves that they are excited about this purpose, excited about sustainability, and want to do something. Now, if you combine that with the fact that Philips is really serious about these topics, and let's say the exco, the top level executives, are also very engaged, I feel that the responsibility that, like a group where I work, like the sustainability group, is to try to be the broker between those two. So what we try to do, first we build up all this infrastructure to have these communities come together. And now we're trying to facilitate these communities and to help them to say, okay, what we learned from the leaders is on circular economy, these are the top 5 challenges. So if you want to do something, you can work on this. And so trying to always make clear what are the challenges and organize hackathons or whatever. And on the other hand, also really listening in to the employees, what are their ideas, what are their complaints, and where do they get stuck? And can we bring that back to the highest level to also bring the energy and the commitments together?
Thank you. Thank you for this insightful view. And from my side, just the last question regarding scope 3. You mentioned that you already achieved the carbon neutrality. So this is probably the scope 1 and 2, your operation.
Operations, yeah.
And how long do you think it will take you to calculate the scope 3? And will you calculate all 15 aspects of greenhouse gas protocol parts in scope 3?
Yeah, so our CO2 reduction targets, so our science-based targets reductions are full scope. So that's why I also said that the biggest impact comes actually out of scope 3. So the targets include everything, which is also helpful in our customer engagement, right? If you talk to hospitals, they often start to talk with us about, okay, how can they reduce their CO2 footprint? How can they use their energy bill? Sometimes also financial incentive, which is okay. So we're working a lot on that end. So with the customers, and the other end, of course, also the suppliers, which is around 15% of our impact. We have a huge supplier sustainability program, which is run by one of my colleagues, which has a lot of elements and really trying to not only be policing our suppliers, but really trying to help them to grow. And one of the latest initiatives there is try to or we actually put also a target out there to make sure that X% of our suppliers are also signing up to science-based targets. So rather than only us saying this is it, we are really looking to their supply base to see who has already signed up and who has not, and can we help them to do that. And ultimately, of course, also if suppliers are really resistant, then to say, okay, then maybe we need to go to another supplier, and that way, make our supply base.
Thank you very much again also for this answer. And the whole story about how you are approaching and facing different challenges on this road. So we all are facing similar questions as organizations and also our partners in the network. Danke, I see you're also with us. Danke Oosterhoop from Dutch Coalition Growth. Hi, Mr. Van Brom, you're still with us, and Moitza Pinterich from the embassy. So Danke, thank you again for connecting us. Hi. You were the connection with Philips, with Harald, and also other companies that we were working with. So maybe just your perspective, how do you see the companies in Netherlands are active on this green transition road, your front runners, and will we achieve the goals that we are supposed to achieve?
I hope so, and not only for myself, but also for the next generation, for the Earth, and for all beings on it, whether that's in the sentient being form, but also for our plants, the ones that feed us, support us, give us oxygen. Maybe a bit philosophical speaking, but I think it starts from every one of us. Every one of us has the opportunity, and I think the responsibility, to act as a change maker, as the one that speaks to his colleagues, his family, him or herself. Also a very important counterpart. This is the constant conversation with yourself. Am I doing enough? If I'm not doing enough, how can I do better? And this is constant. And organizations exist out of people, mostly. People, processes, stories, how we interact. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that when we are on the sustainability journey.
Maybe just one question, Danke, regarding the importance of the organizations like yours and ours, business association helping companies on this road, trying to co-create the legislation, education, awareness. From your point of view, is it valuable to have this kind of organization and the value of your organization?
I think extremely. I think platforms that bring together, the triple helix connection between public parties, private parties, and knowledge institutes, and of course also others as societal organizations and the rest. There needs to be constant conversation between these parties to understand each other's contexts, to understand each other's challenges and opportunities will arise only when we work together and we keep on talking and sharing connections.
Great.
So thank you very much, Anna, also for making this possible. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you too. And we will continue our collaboration. So Harald, thank you. And we will definitely keep in contact. It will be a continuous process. We have to learn from each other and find opportunities. In Slovenia, we are definitely keen of this green and circular transition. So I think many partners would be interested in further collaboration also as business partners with you. So thank you for being with us. And I give the last words to Mr. Ambassador and Mojca. Also, Mojca, don't go away. You are here, the Slovenian-Dutch connector.
Maybe before that, let me spend 2 words. So thank you also from my side. It was really a pleasure to be here. I like also the conversation, good questions. So thanks also for that engagement. And I've sent also a PDF version of the presentation that you will receive, I think, afterwards. So yeah, yes. I hope it helps you further.
Yes, we did record and we will share with our network the whole video and also the slides, so to get new ideas. Thank you, Harald, again. Mojca and Mr. Ambassador, your final message to our network, also for the future.
Mojca, go ahead.
Mojca, you're mute. Oh, we don't hear you. No, we don't hear you. Mr. Verbrum?
Yeah, well, I said at the beginning that I was looking forward to this event and that I expected some promising exchanges of best practices. And as usually, Anna, you did not disappoint us. I think it was a very good event, and we are on the road. This is one step. And I'm really looking forward to continuing our collaboration, keeping on exchanging best practices, and which of course have the purpose to do things better, differently. And thank you very much for all your efforts. Also to Mr. Tepper for the presentation and all the participants. Thank you very much.